If there's one thing I wish I had done earlier in life, it wouldn't be buying more stocks, investing in real estate, or climbing higher up the career ladder. It would be retiring earlier, not out of laziness, not because I wanted to run from responsibility, but because I spent too many years living for work while quietly missing the moments that truly belong to me. Maybe you're in that same place now, stuck between one more year of work just to be sure, or finally stepping away to slow down and start living for yourself. I know that feeling well, that quiet worry. What if I don't have enough to last the rest of my life? What if I'm retiring too soon? When everyone else my age is still working, those concerns are real, and they make sense. But here's what most people won't say out loud. The longer you wait, the more you're giving up things you can never get back. Your health, your time with the people you love, even the peace of a good night's sleep. I'm not here to tell you to make a rushed decision. All I want is to sit with you for a while as two people who've seen a bit of life and speak honestly. From experience, if you've been tired lately, if your heart aches a little each time you think about someday, then maybe today is the day to really start listening to yourself. And if you're still unsure, I invite you to stay with me a little longer and hear the rest of this story so you'll understand why I say I truly wish I had retired sooner. I still remember how I used to think. Just a few more years, a little more saved, a little more stability, then I'd finally have time to live. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? Because that's something many of us have told ourselves. A quiet promise that once everything is in order, we'll finally live for ourselves. But what I didn't realize is that time doesn't wait, not for anyone. Aging doesn't arrive with a loud knock at the door. It comes quietly, in the form of stairs that suddenly feel steeper. Nights when you wake and can't fall back asleep. Mornings when your chest feels just a little more hollow. Time doesn't send a warning about the last day you'll have the strength to walk the park trail, the focus to finish a good book, or the calm to sit with someone you love without checking your phone or your schedule. Back when I was working, I used to tell my wife, just a few more years, then we'll travel, then we'll slow down. But that few years kept stretching, and by the time I finally had the time, my health had changed, my energy had faded, the places I dreamed of visiting, the simple joys I put off, they suddenly felt out of reach. We tell ourselves there will always be more summers, more chances to reconnect, more time to say, maybe next weekend, but not every next time actually comes. And some moments, if missed, will never come around again. I'm not saying this to stir regret. I'm saying it as a quiet reminder. Time isn't something you can save up and reclaim later, like money. It only flows in one direction. And even the most ordinary moment today is one of a kind. If I could go back, I would have retired sooner, not to escape responsibility, but to live more intentionally, to wake up and know the morning was truly mine, to stop checking the clock for the next meeting, to feel my days slow down gently, purposefully, and most of all, to never again whisper I wish I had when it's already too late. And what about you? Have you ever felt like you're trading your best days waiting for some idea of enough, even if you're not quite sure what that means? If you're still watching this video, I'd love for you to share your thoughts in the comments. What does time feel like to you now? And how do you want to spend what's left? Because sometimes, a small story from someone who's been there is enough to help us stop and look at our own life just a little differently. In the next part, I want to talk about the second thing I regret. Not just lost time, but the quiet exhaustion that crept in and wore me down for years before I even realized it. I never expected fatigue to slip into life so quietly until I no longer noticed it was even there. At first, it was just a dull ache in my shoulder, a few restless nights, meals that didn't taste quite right anymore. Nothing serious. I told myself, we brush it off, don't we? Everyone gets tired, a little sleeplessness. That's just part of working hard. We convince ourselves to keep going, just a little more. We say, but that little more, it stretched from 1 month to the next, from 1 year to many. By the time I finally stepped away from work, My body was worn thin, my mind was slower, and my spirit had forgotten what peace even felt like. I thought retirement would be like flipping a switch. Turn off the pressure, turn off the deadlines, and everything would return to normal. But it didn't. It took me a long time to relearn how to breathe, to wake up without an alarm, to realize that I had been surviving on fumes, not living, just pushing forward, without truly feeling anything at all. Work, if left unchecked, slowly chips away at the body, and the mind, and the soul. While we convince ourselves we're doing the right thing, we trade sleep for productivity. We trade rest for results. We trade peace of mind for a sense of safety we never actually define, looking back. The hardest part to admit was this: I spent the strongest years of my life not on passion, but on keeping pace. And when I finally had the chance to rest, my body no longer had the strength to enjoy the freedom I'd waited for all those years. That kind of exhaustion isn't just physical. It seeps into our emotions, our thoughts, our ability to feel joy and to offer love. And the saddest part is, exhaustion rarely arrives all at once. It wears you down slowly, quietly, until you're left as a shell of the person you used to be. If you've made it this far in the video, and you feel something stir in your chest, maybe your body is speaking to you, too. If it is, listen, because sometimes rest isn't a reward after everything's done. It's the very thing you need to keep going in a meaningful way. Have you ever felt that kind of tired? If so, I invite you to leave a comment. It doesn't have to be long, just honest, because sometimes just knowing someone understands, that alone can lighten the weight we've been carrying. And now, let's move on to something just as heavy on my heart: the moments with family I missed, the next times that never came. There are things in life you don't realize are precious until they've become just memories. I'm not even sure when it started, missing family dinners. The times my child sat waiting on the couch for dad to come home. The phone calls from loved ones I brushed off with a quick, "Not now. I'm busy," one by one. Those little moments slipped away quietly and never came back. Back then, I told myself I was doing it all for them, working more, earning more, sacrificing my own time so they could have a better life. I used to believe that love was shown through effort, through providing, through being the steady hand that held everything together. But over time, I learned something I wish I had seen earlier. Sometimes, what they needed most was something far simpler: to be there, to be present, to hold their gaze at dinner, to ask gently, "How was your day, sweetheart?" and truly listen. We think we'll have time to make it up, that if we miss one moment, another will follow. But life doesn't rewind, and the people in it don't stand still. Children grow up when we're not looking. Our parents age quietly, and one day, you find yourself alone in a quiet room, flipping through an old photo album, reaching for faces that are no longer sitting across the table. When I retired, I expected to feel relief, but what I felt first was a hollow ache I couldn't quite name. I had been gone too long from the life that was happening all around me, and no paycheck or title could buy that time back. I wish I had stopped sooner, not to do anything grand, but simply to be there when someone I loved needed me near, to sit quietly, without checking the clock, and just share the room with them. Early retirement doesn't have to be about travel or chasing adventure. Sometimes, it's just the time you need to return home to the kitchen you know by heart, the old couch, the people who've been patiently waiting with a quiet kind of love. If any part of this touches something in you, maybe you've lived through something similar. If so, feel free to leave a comment. Just a few honest words to remind each other that being present is the greatest gift we can give. And in the next part, I'll share another quiet regret. The dreams and small passions I always promised myself I'd get to someday, only to find they had quietly faded. While I was too busy, there are small dreams we once held close, but somehow kept saving for someday. When I was younger, I always believed there would be time after the kids were grown, after the work quieted down, After the finances looked a little more secure, I kept telling myself one day, I'll come back to the things that once made my heart light up. Simple passions, like writing a book, planting a little garden, walking in the woods at sunrise, or learning to play that one instrument I always loved. But that someday, it kept getting pushed back. And when the day finally came when I truly had free time, my hands weren't as steady, my legs not as strong, and that old enthusiasm had quietly faded. Now, I don't believe age means you have to give up on what you love, but I do believe this. If we'd started sooner, we might have enjoyed those things with more of our bodies, more of our minds, and more of that childlike spark we sometimes forget we had. Work, responsibilities, the endless list of things to do. They slowly crowd out those dreams. We get used to putting joy on hold, telling ourselves we'll enjoy life once things feel stable. But life is never perfectly stable. And if we wait for perfect, we might find our hearts have gone quiet by the time we arrive. I used to picture myself sitting by the window someday, pen in hand, writing the stories I had carried with me for years, but after decades of rushing through days. When that quiet morning finally arrived, I didn't know where to begin. Somehow, I had forgotten how to want something just for myself. Time doesn't erase dreams, but it does make the joy in them feel distant. And the longer we wait, the harder it becomes to reach back toward them until one day, we're not even sure what we were dreaming of anymore. So if there's still something in you, some tiny spark, some old wish that still warms your chest when you think of it, please don't wait. Because free time doesn't always come with energy or inspiration. Sometimes it arrives hand in hand with fatigue in both body and spirit. You don't need to do something big. Just begin with something small, steady, sincere, and just for you, to remind yourself that you're still here, still alive, still able to feel, to want, to dream no matter what age you are. If there's a dream you once set aside and it still lingers in your memory, I hope you'll share it with me, not to dwell in regret, but to remind one another that the human heart always has space for something beautiful, as long as we're still willing to reach for it. And as you start to live for yourself again, you may begin to see another truth more clearly, that health doesn't wait for your plans, and it can quietly leave if you don't care for it in time. Let me tell you more about that in the next part. There's something many of us tend to believe, that our health will wait patiently until we're done with work, until life slows down, until we're ready to take care of it. I used to believe that too. I thought I was still strong enough, that I could push through a few more years. And then, when the time came, I'd start living more slowly, start paying more attention to my well-being. But the truth is, our bodies don't follow our schedules. They have their own rhythm, their own limits. And once they've been pushed too far, they speak up, whether we're ready to listen or not. The early signs are quiet, a little stiffness on the stairs, a shortness of breath on a walk through the park, a restless night, or a morning when your eyes take longer to focus than they used to. At first, I brushed it off, blamed it on a busy week, a poor night's sleep, an unbalanced meal. But over time, those little things became my new normal. And by the time I actually retired, my health had already left the station far behind me. What I regret isn't the illness itself. It's that I used up the healthiest years of my life chasing a version of success I didn't really need. I spent the better part of my youth running on too little sleep, grabbing coffee instead of breakfast, skipping the good habits, telling myself I'd get around to them later. But when later finally arrived, my energy was gone. My knees ached. And even the simplest joys no longer felt so simple. I had once imagined quiet mornings walking through the neighborhood, long road trips across the country, afternoons in the backyard with my hands in the dirt. And now, though I finally have the time, I don't always have the strength. And that truth, it stings deeper than any hospital bill I've ever paid. We tend to put off healthy living, thinking it's not urgent just yet. But our bodies don't care about retirement plans. They don't wait for our savings to hit a certain number. They only respond to how we treat them day by day. If I could go back, I'd give more to my health, not out of fear, but out of love for the things I never got around to doing. Because health isn't just the absence of pain. It's the foundation of everything we want to feel, to walk, to laugh, to truly be present in each passing moment. And if something inside you is stirring right now, maybe your body is gently asking you to pause, to pay attention, and to start today, not tomorrow. Have you ever thought you had more time to get healthy again? Or are you starting to see that the time to protect your health is right now? If this resonates with you, feel free to leave a comment or send this to someone who may need a quiet reminder to care for themselves sooner before the regret sets in. And while health is something we often take for granted, there's another reason I waited too long, a quiet fear that kept me stuck for years, even after my spirit was ready to move on. The fear of not having enough money. Let me tell you about that next. I used to think, if I could just save a little more, then I'd finally feel ready to rest. Maybe you've been there too. Every time the thought of retirement comes up, you pull out the numbers, the savings account, the monthly expenses, the cost of groceries, insurance, property taxes, and then you fold it all back up again with a quiet sigh. We spend our lives believing you don't stop until you're absolutely sure. But what does sure even mean? And when do we finally feel it's enough? I spent years running calculations, double-checking every line, every what if. What if I get sick? What if inflation soars? What if something unexpected happens? I lived in a state of just in case for so long. I forgot that those years were real life too, that waiting wasn't free, it was costing me time, moments, peace of mind, and the truth I'd had enough long before I believed it. I just didn't trust it. I didn't trust the careful planning I'd done for decades. I let fear make the decisions, even when my heart was ready to stop and breathe. The bitterest part wasn't a lack of money. It was too much fear. Fear of not having enough. Fear of risk. Fear that I wouldn't be able to sustain the life I hoped for. But over time, I learned something that changed me. Peace doesn't come from a high balance in your bank account. It comes from clarity, from knowing what's truly enough, and choosing simplicity over stress. We grew up in a generation that was taught to save, to prepare for the worst, and that's not wrong. But sometimes, we get so good at preparing, we forget why we were preparing in the first place. We save in order to live, not to spend our golden years in quiet anxiety, waiting for one more sign that it's okay to stop. Now, I wish I had trusted myself, trusted that I had done the work, trusted that even if everything wasn't perfect, a simpler, quieter life was still possible. And enough? If any part of you is still unsure, still wondering, do I really have enough? I invite you to share your thoughts, because sometimes saying the fear out loud is enough to take half its power away. And the thing that finally woke me up had nothing to do with numbers. It was a truth we all know, but one no one likes to say. None of us are promised tomorrow. And the only thing that truly matters is choosing to live while we still can. Let me tell you more about that in the final part. I've known many friends in my life who spent decades preparing carefully for the day they called freedom. They calculated their savings, planned out their retirement, dreamed of slow mornings, road trips, time to finally breathe. They just needed to finish one more project, get the house in order, wait until everything felt truly ready. But some of them never stepped into the someday they had planned for so long. We all hope we'll stay healthy into our 80s or 90s. Sharp minds, steady legs, a heart still filled with longing and curiosity. But life doesn't make those promises. Some people retire, only to receive bad news about their health. Some finally wrap up their affairs, only to find their energy is gone before they can even take the first trip. What we call the future can be more fragile than we'd like to admit. So if you're sitting with that quiet voice inside saying, I'm tired, I want to slow down, maybe now, not later, is the time to really listen. Retirement isn't an ending. It can be a beginning, but only if you still have the strength to enjoy it. We spend our whole lives preparing for something good, but in doing so, we often give up the most valuable years we had, all because we kept waiting for just a little more certainty. I'm not saying this to make you anxious. I'm sharing it so we can look more honestly at a truth we all know, but few dare to face. We don't know how many days we have left, and that's why, if there's any way to live differently, now is the time. If there's a way to start sooner, start, because if you wait for perfect conditions, you might end up trading the best years of your life for a version of safety that never quite arrives. Old age isn't just about slowing down. It can be about coming back to life if we're willing to let go of what's been weighing us down. It's the season where we're allowed to live for what really matters: family, peace, and mornings that don't start in a rush. If you've made it this far in the video, I believe something inside you is already stirring. Maybe it's a quiet fear, or maybe it's a dream that still hasn't been fulfilled. Whatever it is, I invite you to share it with me and with others walking the same path. Because sometimes, a few words from someone who's lived through it can be the light that helps another heart move forward. And if you're asking yourself, is it time to live differently? Then maybe the fact that you're asking at all means the answer has already arrived. In the end, I didn't share all of this to rush anyone into a decision. Each of us has our own story, our own pace, and thoughts that aren't always easy to put into words. All I wanted was to quietly remind you of something simple. Life doesn't wait for everything to be perfect before it allows us to live fully. Maybe you're not ready for a big change, and that's okay. But don't let vague worries steal away the most peaceful years you still have, because the truth is, the little things we long for, a slow morning, a quiet afternoon with loved ones, a moment of stillness just for ourselves, they don't have to wait. They can begin today. You don't need to do anything dramatic. You don't need to have all the answers. You just need to listen to what your heart has been trying to say. If you're still hesitating, if there's something in you that hasn't yet been spoken, I invite you to leave a few words in the comments, not to close a chapter, but to start a quiet conversation between people who've lived enough life to truly understand one another. And if you know someone who's feeling what you're feeling, someone tired, someone unsure of what comes next, someone who hasn't found the words to say it out loud, send them this video, because sometimes just one sentence at the right moment can make someone feel a little lighter. After all, what we need isn't always advice. Sometimes it's simply knowing that someone out there truly understands. Thank you for listening all the way to the end, and wherever your life takes you from here, I hope you live it at your own rhythm, slowly, gently, and fully present in each day you still have.